the thread running through the book is that again of hope and of a better future. And also there is so much misery which you've showcased. How have you managed to keep the rhythm and the mood of the book upbeat?
I think these things just happened to me. It just happened to me that when we, in Dharmapuri, in Tamil Nadu, which is one of the most backward districts of Tamil Nadu, somewhere in the remote part, in one of the villages, we came across a primary health center. And always there is, the general feeling is nothing happens in the government, sarkar to kuch karti nahi hai, ye to. In the primary health center, we saw these 6-7 women. They were nurses, they were ANMs, they were cleaning women, and there was no bijli. So the triumph of the moment was that in this dark spot, literally no bijli, they had successfully delivered a baby girl.
Wow.
So the face of the mother, the child was healthy, the mother was okay, and there were all these government functionaries just working because they had to see life being delivered. And so the hope, the despair, the hope, the despair, this is how my entire journey was. And if it was not for these moments of hope and the moments of triumph, it would have been, very difficult.
So for somebody who feels so passionately, who's so emotional, and who's worked very strongly at the grassroots level, you've worked on gender issues and with children, and to see this cycle of hope and despair, do you think somewhere it's strengthened your belief in the fact that yes, we're actually going to make it across these hurdles?
It's a very good question, Gaura. I really feel you have, you've hit something which is close to my heart. I think we're going to make it, because if you aggregate all the good things that are happening in this country, both in the private sector, in the NGO sector, and the government sector, if you aggregate them, I think there is a lot to work on. And the answer is to be able to, if there is something good happening somewhere, then government doesn't know everything, just as the other sector doesn't know everything. So to be able to understand, to learn, and if possible to upscale it. Upscale is also not a mantra, because everything can't be upscaled. But if you can take the ingredients of a good thing which is happening and take the practice from across the country, not be shy to learn, not always sort of feel diffident to learn, embarrassed to learn, I think there is, I think we can make it. Because, we are doing things in the area of governance. This 12th plan, which we are now working on, a very, very important part of it is how do we improve our systems, accountability and governance. So I think, we do have the paradigm.
Syeda, this honesty that you bring to the fact that yes, this is where we are, these are our issues, and yet there's hope. So how do we get at least, right from civil society to the government machinery to say, we need to be honest about what the reality is. That doesn't mean we're always pulling it down, but we're hopeful. So how do we bring this in?
Let me say it honestly. I think we'll have to be humble about it. We'll have to be students of each other. There is always the feeling that it's always a dichotomous situation. And I think we are actually, when you think of it, we are on the same side. But it's always, you find that when there are public hearings, when there are Jan Sunwais, it's my personal experience, and I'm talking of mufassils and all, where I've been to the Jan Sunwais, there are never any government officers there. For example, in Jharkhand, in Palamu district, there was a public hearing. There were about 3,000 people, and they had all come from the nearby villages, from Latehar, from Lohar Dagga. कितना मुश्किल होता है उतनी दूर से आना, एक दिन की वेज भी give up करना, उतना चल के आना, and then and the collectorate was just about 2-3 kilometers from there, and I've written about it, so it's not something that, but there was no one there, and because there is a certain hesitation that they feel the people will be angry, they will be critical, they'll bash us up. So there is that kind of a distance. I think we have to overcome that distance. I was there. I'm never bashed up when I go into the villages and I go into the districts and the mufassils. I'm a lot bashed up when I go to the elegant gatherings and they say the budget lai ho, usme gender budgeting kahan hai, what is in there for women. So that also, I mean, I've been there long enough, so I know how to live with it. But I think that hesitation has to go, because even if I'm a very senior bureaucrat, I'm just an Indian who's trying to do things for this country.
Syeda, we're going to go in for a short break, but when we come back, we want to, hear from you some heartwarming stories during the course of this book, and also get to know a lot more about you. Of course, there's a lot to know. All that and a lot more after this break. Welcome back. We're still in conversation with Syeda Hameed, who's a writer, social activist, and currently member Planning Commission. Syeda, from this book, some heartwarming stories which stand out for you?
There's a story of Bismillah Khan. We had gone to Banaras, and I wanted to go and see Bismillah Khan. So we went to this it was in the walled city, 3 floors, very narrow stairwell. We went all the way up on a empty cot in a very sparsely furnished room. He was sitting in his lungi banyan, and his eyes were just twinkling. He was wearing a little mudri in his ear, and he started off by saying, I'm so happy that you have come to see me, because I've just been reading about you. So I thought, reading about us? As it happened, the day before, we had been to a place called Shivdaspur Mohalla in Banaras, which is a place where the sex workers stay.
Okay.
And we had seen how these sex workers, women had come to us. Sanstha was called Gudiya, which had actually mobilized them. And they had all been badly beaten up. Jaga jaga chote lagi hui, where they had been beaten up, again by the police. Because if you are sex work, you are somehow always, you are always identified as the wrongdoer or the criminal. So he said to us, मैंने आज किसी ने मुझे अखबार में पढ़ के सुनाया कि तुम शिवदासपुर मोहल्ले गई थी, बदनसीब औरतों के सर पे हाथ रखा, उसके लिए मैं तुम्हें मुबारकबाद देना चाहता हूँ. I cannot forget. And 6 months later, when we went back to Banaras, Hindus, Muslims, mosques, mandirs, everyone was praying for him, and he was dying.